Welcome back to Telltale. This is Greg. I'm here to talk about a couple of short stories by H.G. Wells. About 5 years ago, I made the decision to try to read everything I can get my hands on by H.G. Wells and to try and read it in the order of publication as close as I can find out. And so I started with what I had, and the earliest works, of course, were most of his short stories. So I've read most of H.G. Wells' short stories at this time, and all the novels that were written between 1892 and 1900. Now, 4 years after I started this project, we started Telltale. So I haven't done video reviews of all these stories, haven't really discussed them. And so I'm backtracking now to do some video reviews of some of the best of what I've read by H.G. Wells. Two of the best are two short stories that were published in Pall Mall Budget magazine. That was a weekly magazine that was published in England in the 1890s. The Flowering of the Strange Orchid was published on 2nd of August, 1894. In the Observatory was published on the 9th of August, 1894. The Time Machine saw its first publication during this same year. And these two short stories were included in a book called The Stolen Bacillus and Other Incidents, which is H.G. Wells' first hardcover short story collection. The two stories share some similarities in that both stories are about men who encounter strange, never before heard of life forms. And these life forms are dangerous. In The Flowering of the Strange Orchid, it's a flesh-eating plant encountered by a man who collects orchids, particularly rare orchids. So this was the pride of his collection, but it turned out to be dangerous and deadly. In the Observatory is about a man working late in an astronomical observatory, sitting there in the dark looking through a telescope, and something gets in the observatory. It's pitch black in there, so except for the slit where the telescope is pointing out, where you can see some stars. So this thing gets in, he can hear it, but he can't see it until it zooms past the opening and he can kind of make out the shape. And it's kind of a bat-like creature flying around in there. Of course, it gets scared, it's flying all over, it encounters him, it attacks him. You can guess. Both of these stories are very short, but in that short amount of time, H.G. Wells does a beautiful job of crafting an atmosphere of mystery, of the unknown, of terror and horror, and he really grabs you. H.G. Wells was a master storyteller. Brilliant short stories, a couple of the greatest I've ever read, and fine examples of how to do a short story right. You don't want to try to put too much detail into it. You want to get to the point and get out. And H.G. Wells does that. They're both in the public domain, so you can find them on Project Gutenberg, but otherwise they're everywhere. If you're one of the lucky ones that has a copy of The Stolen Bacillus and Other Incidents from 1895, it's probably a very valuable book, but the rest of us, we can find it in a lot of other collections. I have them both in 28 science fiction stories published by Dover Books. This is where I first encountered short stories by H.G. Wells. I found this book in my public library in Racine and took it home and read it and fell in love with the book so much that later on I tracked this down. Dover was still publishing and selling it, so I bought it new and purchased this copy, and it's the pride of my collection. I got rid of the dust cover. It got ripped. It wasn't very interesting anyway. Sadly, Dover Books no longer has this in print, but there are plenty of other collections of H.G. Wells short stories that you can find. So go out and read them, and when you do, come back and tell us what you think, or if you've already read us, tell me what you think right now. Like our videos, subscribe to our videos, share our videos with your friends. We really want to get through to people who love excellent books and excellent literature, and especially excellent science fiction, fantasy, and horror. So that's it for today. Till next time, have a good week.